Remember the office? Some of you are back there, some of you are still working remotely, and some of you are doing this thing called hybrid working. But whatever the case, you also have an office in your head. In that office, there's a worker that's thinking about things and getting stuff done, and there's a boss. Now, the truth is, having a bad boss is incredibly stressful. In fact, it's one of the main reasons people cite for leaving their jobs. Unfortunately, you can't resign to the boss in your head. A lot of the effectiveness work that I've done over many years has been essentially showing people how to be a better boss to themselves. And what I've found in this work is a couple of key principles that help with this. And they're not particularly difficult to grasp, but they're very underapplied. The first is that it's very hard to manage what you can't see. And the second is that it's very hard to succeed when you don't really know the goal. Applying these two on a practical basis is what I'd like to show you how to do in this video. And doing so will help you to be a better leader to yourself and a better leader to your team. And that includes whether or not you're the actual boss of that team, because what I've found is that leadership comes from all over the organization. To make this happen, you need to get past what I call the trap of presenteeism into this much more turbocharged, successful place that comes from externalizing clear results. And I'm going to explain exactly what that means in just a minute. Presenteeism is all about your body being in the chair, right? So if you've ever had the experience of being at work but not really being all there, you know that's not the whole story, is it? Presenteeism is about the person, not about what they're doing. So if you can't see their screen, it could be just about anything. And some really terrible approaches to trying to manage this situation have sprung up, including a kind of spyware that some people have put on their workers' computers to monitor things like, are they moving their mouse every so often? Talk about a total morale killer. But I've also seen some very successful, so-called high-powered individuals in important jobs staying late in the office because it looks good, frankly. And part of the reason I think that a lot of bosses are eager for people to get back to the office is, yes, the collaboration, the mentorship, all the good things that go on in person, but also just the fact that they can see you. Again, you can't manage what you can't see, but there is a much better way. So this shows up working remotely as well, by the way. Those of you that have been answering emails late at night or responding to calls at odd times just to show, hey, I'm always available, I'm always here, could be masking a little bit of a sense of guilt, frankly, that you've been running errands in the middle of the day or just kind of spacing out with a lack of direction from time to time. So this all shows up in a variety of ways, and the truth is managing the physical or even the digital presence of an individual is not really the same as managing their effectiveness in doing their job. It makes a lot of sense, right? And it stands to reason. The answer for all of this is not presenteeism, but externalization. So as much as presenteeism is about the person, externalization is about the system. Yeah, you can't manage what you can't see, and you can't really see inside people's heads, or can you? A good externalization system that you either use individually or as a team should be able to represent what's being worked on in ways that everyone can easily recognize, and most importantly, what needs to be done, and in many cases, by when. So this is far more effective, of course, because you're managing results rather than just managing presence or time. Makes perfect sense, right? And there's a proliferation of tools out there that try to help teams do this, right? Teams use all kinds of groupware and approaches, but unfortunately, based on the way that they're using them more than anything, they end up being often kind of a dumping ground, frankly, of conversations rather than outcomes, sort of half-formed ideas rather than clear next steps, and therefore very little in the way of really what we truly called externalized results and outcomes. So How do you really get there? Spoiler alert is that, yes, while truly bad software could hinder the situation, finding the perfect tool isn't actually the answer. Fortunately, a few surprisingly simple questions can go an enormous way toward taking whatever tool you're using and making it massively more effective. So let's talk about those questions. First, let's talk about those questions in boss mode. Highly ineffective boss question: how late were you in last night? And yes, most good bosses know not to ask that explicitly, but it may be running kind of in the back of your mind. And what about you in boss mode? Have you ever found yourself sort of being a little bit of a taskmaster in relation to the sheer amount of time you put in on a particular task? So at least you can say, hey, I worked a long time on that. Much more effective question: what is your list of projects that you're working on right now? And how can I help you with prioritizing those so you know that you're focused on the right thing? That's a good boss. That's a good boss externally. That's going to help you set relative priorities and manage your workload. And that's a great boss internally when you're doing that for yourself and asking that question as well. On the remote side of things, the boss question is, are you available? Are you available whenever I randomly call you or randomly ping you on some kind of social or messaging platform? Are you available? And does it sound like you're at the grocery store in the background when I do talk to you? Again, that monitoring of presenteeism that goes on. Much more effective question: what are some of the next steps you're working on? And by when? That simple question, what's the very next step? What's the very next action that you're going to take, or some of the actions you're going to take in the coming time period, makes a huge difference between monitoring what you can see in terms of the person working hard and what you can see in terms of the results of the steps they're taking to make things happen in the real world. Now, let's switch over to worker mode. What does it mean when you really not only ask these questions, but take the results of asking those questions, right? The clear list of projects, the clear understanding of next steps and timelines on all of that, and get it into a system that not only the team can see in some way, but that you can see and work from as well. It leads to some statements by the worker part of you or the workers on your team that indicate either effectiveness or a lack of effectiveness in your ability to manage. Statement from the worker you or the workers on your team: so tired, I worked so late. Clearly a sign of presenteeism and ineffectiveness there. Statement that indicates high levels of effectiveness for you as a worker and for those on your team: I know what I got done and it felt good. When's the last time you were able to say that? When's the last time you were able to step back and look at a list and see the things that were crossed off on it? And most importantly, know that those things were the right things to get done. Statement of ineffectiveness from a worker: I'm really overwhelmed by competing demands, competing priorities. Statement of effectiveness from a worker: I keep track of my commitments and I renegotiate them when I need to. Right? That's that part where the relationship between the worker and the manager in terms of setting relative priority is a two-way street, where you recognize, you know what, this is more to do than can be done. I need to renegotiate. I need to work some things out. I need to make some trade-offs between, for example, personal and professional commitments. So those two statements, that I know what I got done and it felt right, and that I keep track of what I say I'll do, and when I need to renegotiate, I do so, are the signs of a highly effective worker, someone who's getting stuff done in the world. But the only way that they can really do that is by being set up by a highly effective boss or boss component, if that's all happening inside of you. Sometimes it's easier to see the dynamics on the outside between people, but again, the office in your head is the one you can't ever escape. So you want to be a better boss. You want to be a better boss to yourself. You want to be a leader to those around you. It comes down to asking those questions and then finding good places to represent the answers to those questions. That's really it. There's a direct correlation, in my experience, between asking those questions and getting those answers put somewhere that you can access and refer to, and having those statements, those empowering statements of feeling good about what you got done and knowing what it is you said you'd do. It really is that simple. It is, however, a journey to begin to implement this for teams, to begin to implement this for yourself, to raise the effectiveness that you're experiencing in your day-to-day life, personally and professionally, and to raise the effectiveness of your team. And that's work that I've been doing on a practical basis for many, many years. It's all part of a methodology called Getting Things Done, or GTD, invented by a man named David Allen. There's a best-selling book out there of the same name if you want to learn more intellectually. And really the best way that I've found to take this on board and start to work all of the principles is to attend seminars and have some coaching, which is what we do full-time, all the time here in the UK as part of the franchise of David Allen's company. If you'd like to know more about any of that, just visit our website, next-action.co.uk. There you'll find that you can sign up for a newsletter where you get weekly bites of information just like this one, practical tips and overviews of how you can use the methodology and use it better. If you're on YouTube, feel free to please subscribe and hit the little bell to get notified. And we've just launched something that will support, I think, a lot of people who aren't quite maybe ready to take the step of coaching or attending a seminar, but would like to up-level their game as a kind of self-taught practitioner. And I think it's also something that will benefit those of you that are far along in the game, that have received some of our more formal education and are continuing to want to sort of up-level your game. It is a journey. It is a long-term process, a lifestyle, I think, really, of figuring out how to be an excellent boss to yourself and others. And so to support that lifestyle, we have something called the GTD Collective, a community where we provide live support with things like the live weekly review. We provide insider content, stuff like this, but much more sort of practical and engaged with the actual members of the community. So feel free to check that out. It's very, very reasonable, got a monthly fee to be able to be involved with that. And it's something where, I look forward and welcome seeing those of you that watch this video, and let me know. I'm eager to interact with you and hear how it's going. How's it going in there with being your own best boss? For now, from me, thanks for listening, and here's hoping, if nothing else, that you can take away from this some sense of awareness that there are these two components, that they do both kind of need help, and that you can be a better manager to and of yourself as a starting point for then becoming a better leader in your team. The truth is, the world sure needs leadership right now. So I hope that spoke to you. See you soon.